Hi, my name is Zoe. I'm the founder of Eru. We make woolen blankets where we honour the ancient practices of working with wool, and we are working to put a value back on Irish wool, which has gone into a tragic decline over the past few decades. So the name of the company is Eru, who is a sovereignty goddess who I've spoken about previously, a goddess of the Tuatha Dé Danann, the tribe of Danu, an ancient mythical race that lived in Ireland. They worshipped the divine feminine, or they lived according to the divine feminine principles, I believe. And these sovereignty goddesses of the Tuatha Dé Danann are my guides, and they've been my guides for many years. So today, I was guided to do a video as it's the winter solstice, which was a time of great celebration here in Ireland. And this is symbolised, that one of the main celebratory places is the sacred site is Newgrange, where the winter solstice is displayed and honoured through the Newgrange is actually a mound. It's a, they call it a passage tomb, I think, but I see it as a womb. So it's this immaculately designed mound, and on the winter solstice, each year and for many years, it has, when the sun rises, it is designed in such a way that there's a very small roof box in the mound, in the building, that the light penetrates, and when the light penetrates, it illuminates the whole inner chamber, and actually illuminates the triple spiral symbol on one of the walls, which is this triskel, this triple spiral, very well known symbol for in the Celtic tradition. I believe this symbolizes the divine masculine and feminine principles coming together to create a whole, to create a unity. So I feel that on the winter solstice, Newgrange is so old. It's an ancient sacred site, older than the pyramids, older than Stonehenge, and it's actually also, the energy has been changed there. It's been desecrated to some extent. Actually, it's amazing how well designed and well intact it is now, and people can go into the chamber each year and they get to see this illumination take place. So however, the original site, there has been energy shifted there. It used to be surrounded by stones in a stone circle. Some of these stones have been removed. Some of the, it is said that some of the pieces of the chamber, certain stones have also been removed that were part of this. I believe it's a stargate, and it was used as a birthing chamber. That's what that's what I hear. So the sovereignty goddesses were guiding me to remind myself to work with on this solstice, which was an identification and reclamation of the inner masculine and feminine principles. It's the sacred marriage within myself. So that's what I'm doing on this solstice, which is a continual inner work for me, but just identifying where these principles are out of balance in myself and bringing them back into balance and unifying that sacred marriage, which I believe in Newgrange was, on the winter solstice, was a celebration of this. If you think about it, the light, the god, the sun god that they called Dagda, is said to penetrate the womb of this goddess, this in Newgrange. So that's such a masculine feminine unification, and that produced this illumination in the womb. So I think that's such a powerful symbol of these principles. And I also feel that this has been, these hierogamic codes that are throughout Ireland at sacred sites and royal sites, I believe, have also been disturbed through the sites, and these codes have been disturbed or interfered with, and that has impact on us. So I believe, as I said before, the Tuatha De Danann were, these sovereignty goddesses were performing these sacred marriage rituals and celebrations on various sacred sites to encode the land and uphold these principles of unification within the grid for everybody. So one of the sovereignty goddesses that I work with is the Marraige. She's known as, a war battle goddess. I feel she's kind of like a Kali Ma energy. And she came to me, about 7 or 8 years ago now, when I was always working with the divine feminine principles and wisdoms that I've always been guided to. However, I was in a place in my life where I was my inner masculine and feminine was definitely out of balance. I had attracted and created distorted circumstances, relationships based on this imbalance within myself. And I found that even, my own spiritual practice wasn't, I was kind of hitting a wall with it. The divine feminine principles of flow, magnetism, creation, receptivity and intuition, I felt that they were almost becoming numb in me, even though I was working with these principles and learning wisdoms. And she came to me very strongly, and she came in the form of, she is the crow goddess as well. So all these crows kept coming to my house and landing on my door, and they were saying to me, death is coming, death is coming. And I was trying to ignore them. I was trying to just say to myself, oh my God, I'm imagining they're talking to me. I thought I was, going mad or calling myself that anyway, but they were very persistent. And, that, oracular receptivity of speaking with animals, receiving information from the land and from her animal kingdoms is a divine feminine principle. That I know I've always had and I've shut down, that we all have ability to access. So when I started listening to them, I knew they were right. I knew what they were telling me was there were things in my life that I'd created that needed to die, that needed to be rebirthed. And that's what they were saying. They were saying it so impartially. It was just like, death is coming, death is coming. And that is one of the divine feminine principles, that for creation and birthing, there is death, and not to be so scared of that or see it as such a negative thing. The way has to be cleared in order for rebirth. So when the Marraige came to me in my meditation, she was very strong, and she appeared to me with the Dagda, Dagda, who is the solar god of the Tuatha De Danann, and they came as this pair, their consorts. And they said, she explained what needed to be, what I had created and what needed to die in order to rebirth, in order for me to grow. And, she said, you need to raise your field, which is an agricultural term for, or AZE, for, setting a field on fire, so that it can regrow. And they always speak in double meaning. So she was saying, I need to raise my field, but, my energy field and my field around me, my surroundings, burn it to the ground, really, in order to grow, and also raise my field. So that would raise my vibration, because as I said, I was kind of hitting this wall. So she really encouraged me to go and face all the darker parts of me, all the imbalances. And I feel like this is such an important part of the divine feminine. She can lead us to those dark spaces within us that need to be looked at. They need to be accounted for. We need to take responsibility for our creations. And she showed me all the places that I had this masculine, feminine imbalance within me. So I wasn't in flow. I wasn't trusting myself. I wasn't trusting my own divine connection. I was looking outside of myself for answers, for support, for provisions, rather than knowing, once I connect to my own divinity, my own source, that everything is provided for. So I wasn't receiving this. I was looking outside myself, and that led to kind of stifling of my own divine feminine energies, and led to then putting my inner masculine out of balance as well. And when that is out of balance, I find that the inverted feminine can then project onto the masculine. So instead of having those masculine qualities also in place within me, I was projecting onto them in the outer world, looking for those missing masculine parts within myself, or those, and projecting them outside through the form of relationships, looking for the masculines to provide for me or protect me, and then I would manifest situations where, through these projections, that I would be in a situation then would cause me to view the masculine, or experience it in a negative way, through the other negative aspects of the masculine, force or control or manipulation or oppression. So that's really, for me, my understanding, when the divine feminine is not flourishing, when it is not in balance, where it is not empowered, then it is a victim to the imbalanced masculine. That's an inner thing and an outer thing, and this is for men and women. It's irrespective of gender, because these principles are the same within us all, regardless of what gender anyone identifies with. So she really led me on a journey. They both helped me look at these energies within myself, and she led me on a journey to really face all of my creations that I had created from a wounded place, from an imbalanced place, and I had to really set them on fire. And that led me then into a series of initiations into the divine feminine way, which was really initiations of faith and trust, throwing out everything I knew, everything I'd relied on, a lot of really the false matrix and these false ideals, of which are the programming in our society, where this masculine feminine balance is out of balance. I had built things according to that, and really that all had to crumble. And that was really scary, but I had to then, through just diving deeper, burning everything to the ground, and realizing through trust, faith, relying on my intuition, going and listening to my oracular knowing and receptivity, through my own replenishing and re-strengthening my own direct connection to source, stopping to look outside of myself for the answers through people or things or teachers. Even though I was receiving teachings, actually started magnetizing the right teachings, the more powerful teachings of the divine feminine wisdom, especially a lot of the new kind of channelings that are coming through, like the Sophia Code, like radical divine feminine teachings. I started magnetizing them, absorbing them, and really went on a journey of throwing out everything I knew and recreating my life according to these divine feminine principles. And I find that this is a continual journey. It's a continual refinement, and I feel that when these balances within us are distorted, we are then open to all the manipulations and distortions in the matrix around us, in the programs around us. So I find that the kind of, when I'm trying to work on this myself, I'm fine. I find, like, if I find myself projecting, and I'm saying, okay, what is out of balance in the feminine in me? What is out of balance in the masculine in me? And no matter what my situation is, what the wounding is, or the hurt, or whatever it is that I'm dealing with, I find that when I address these principles within myself, that, and I heal these, and I find, because there's always one of them that is hurt or wounded, and it's from my childhood programming, my ancestral programming, societal programming. You know, they're not our fault. There are these sacred marriage hierogamic codes have been distorted everywhere, even I believe in the land. This is like an agenda program to literally split up this sacred marriage. When I go back into myself and find the peace, whether that's in the feminine or the masculine, that needs to be addressed, then the healing is done on the outside. It's never the outer thing. It's never the relationship or that's just a clue to what is, has gone imbalanced within myself. So, yeah, I started, on that journey to re-empower my divine feminine. And as I said, there are the principles of flow, trust, receptivity, intuition, receiving the oracular wisdom from the land all around us, from our own divine direct connection. And once that divine feminine, those principles are reinstated or become reinstated and re-empowered, then they re-empower the masculine principles within ourselves. So as an example for this, for me, when I'm faced with a decision or an opportunity or a challenge, without going into the whole thinking or the doing or the fixing or whatever needs to be done in response to that, I try to go into this rightful balance. So I'll face myself with the situation and go into meditation, receive in a divine feminine way this feminine principle of receptivity, receive my inner guidance, connect to source, receive from my higher self, my guides. And then once I've sat with that and I have listened to that feminine principle, then that empowers the masculine principle in me to take the rightful action. So it will be the right action step, or it will be the right response, the thing I have to do. So I always do that first, and that's the way that the sovereignty goddesses are always showing me. It's the divine feminine first that takes the lead. So they're the feminine principles of listening, receptivity, that allows us to receive, then either to birth or to flow into what needs to be done. And then the masculine principle comes in, whether that's the action step, whether that's a protection or a discernment that needs to happen. And then they flow and honor each other in this way. When I spoke, the Dagda explained this to me in a funny way, saying like, this principle of this balance, they honored this in the Tua De Danann, the men and the women. So they honored the feminine principle. They honored their feminines as well, and the mother and child and the birthing, all those feminine aspects. And they said when this is empowered, the masculine can take its rightful place of provider, holder, caretaker, protector. And he said that, this is why they're called the Tua De Danann, the tribe of Danu, the tribe of the mother goddess. So this honoring of the feminine principle. And he said that they did this, they held this honoring within themselves, they held this honoring within their partnerships, and they held this honoring in their land, in like say their agriculture, their farming, their building. They would listen to the land, to the cycles, to the times, to the omens, to the birds, and then take action on what needed to happen. And he said this is also the principle in battle as well, that they listened, they intuited, and then they took action. So that really is however, when this is out of balance within ourselves and we don't trust our own feminine aspects, then we jump into action, or we project, or we can often those toxic masculine energies can come out and end us up in a mess anyway, where we're suppressing the feminine ones. And that's really an example of how the world is and what needs to be rebalanced. That's what the sovereignty goddesses are always showing me. So again, it's this a constant practice, a constant letting go of all these old programs, distortions, disruptions, and initiating ourselves into trust, which is a continuously, like an ocean, like through waves, we build this kind of trust and rebuild this divine masculine feminine sacred marriage principle within ourselves. I found another thing I found when I've been working throughout my work on my identifying and rebalancing my own feminine principles, and empowering them within myself. That was really the work I had to do first, and it's a constant practice, as I said. But then I saw where I was out of balance in my masculine, and that's more of the recent practice for me. I found as well, I saw those negative sides of the masculine that I had created through my own, my own imbalance, which I said was, suppressing my own feminine qualities, led to me not having my own masculine qualities of discernment, protection on myself, and then attracting these, harmful masculines energies in my life as projections. So when I started empowering these divine feminine principles and started rebuilding my life, magnetizing, creating, birthing, the business, my life in a new way, one of the things, because the divine feminine is so powerful, and especially the Marraige showed me she's this powerful warrior goddess, and they kind of embody femininity, but also the warriorness, and part of me was then feeling like, why do you need the man then? It's like they are so powerful in themselves as a feminine quality. They can be protectors. They are protectors. They're guardians of the land, of ourselves, that maternal instinct, that lioness spirit, is so powerful, combined with the divine feminine qualities of birthing and receptivity and flow. I was realizing then I was also negating the masculine then within myself. I was also then saying unconsciously, well, I'm just going to empower the divine feminine. I don't need those masculine qualities. That was really a distortion, because I was just still probably hurt by them. So in a way that, it's just another toxic, out of balance aspect of the feminine, to kind of castrate the masculine and feel you don't need it. You're just so empowered by the divine feminine that we don't need these masculines, whereas the opposite is true. And the sovereignty goddesses show me this always in their display of their relationships, inner and outer. They were warriors, but they were lovers. They were protectors and guardians of the land. They were also mothers and nurturers. They could, I believe, parthenogenetically birth, which I believe Newgrange was about, and a lot of those sites. But they relied, and they needed their sacred masculine in place as the protectors to enable them to birth safely. And this display through their sacred marriage rites, where they coronated the rightful kings, that it's, that they're always telling me that both of these need to be in place within us, and then it translates to outside of us. So in these, in these sacred marriage rites, as I've spoke about before, it was the sovereignty goddesses. They were in this rightful balance, and that led them to be able to identify the rightful kings, the rightful masculines, who were ones who had this balance correct within themselves, that they would then coronate them as the kings. So it was the queens coronating the kings, and this led to the royal sacred marriages within themselves, this balance, this divine masculine feminine balance, and then create this energy of unification and oneness, and this balance the grid and the land and serve the communities and the earth. So yeah, I think that I had a dream the other night, because I'm working on these principles always myself, as I said, the divine masculine ones a lot more recently as well, and about trusting this masculine within myself, this principle. And I had a dream the other night. It's very cold here at the moment in Ireland, and we had a really cold spell, and I had the heating on a lot, and I have 2 little kids, and I had the heating on, I had the fire on, and part of me was getting worried, oh my God, my bill's going to be so big, or started just getting into a lack about that. And I was thinking, oh, maybe I'll, turn it off. And then I was like, come on, Zoe, you're abundant. I was getting caught by that, fear agenda of not enough. Anyway, I had a dream then that night where I was in my house, and I was speaking to another girl, and my boiler, which creates the heat in my home, there was some issue with it. And I was saying to the girl, oh, don't worry, I'm married to the boiler man. He fixes it, he supplies all my heat. And and she was saying, oh, you're so lucky. That's amazing to be married to the boiler man. You are constantly supplied for, caretaken of, provided for. You'll never have a problem with your heating or with warmth or security. And in the dream, I was like, oh, it felt so good. I was like, yeah, I'm so lucky. That lovely feeling of being held, and with this most basic important principle of being heated for myself and my children was taken care of. So it's a great dream. And when I woke up, I was thinking, oh, what was that about? And then I realized, oh my God, that's my, it's the marriage of my inner, my divine feminine, masculine qualities. It's a funny reflection of the sacred marriage within myself, which I was delighted about, because it's like the rightful balance of knowing. And I had that dream after I reset myself in meditation to go, okay, now I know my own direct connection to source. I'm provided for. So I went into my divine feminine space to receive that comfort, and then I activated my divine masculine within myself, that knowing that I am held, that my source, our divinity, takes care of everything we need. And I addressed those fears within me, that it was lack programming, okay, where it's coming from, identified it, resolved it, went into that inner balance, and then I had that dream, which was so funny. So it's a lovely feeling within ourselves when that sacred marriage is in balance. We know that actually, like many years ago when I was looking outside myself for all the answers, that everything we have is inside us. That once we connect and remember to connect to our own direct connection to source, which is what the sovereignty goddesses are always telling me, then we activate those divine feminine principles of receptivity, receiving all the information we need. We activate then the masculine principles, taking whatever action we need to do to create those circumstances in our life, and to create that protection around us of these feminine qualities. So we are always then receiving, we are always connected, and then we are protecting that connection. And then this sacred marriage, when we're in harmony with this, we are always provided for. We always have everything we need, and we are in that state of oneness. And when we come out of it, what happens easily with something coming in, or fear or lack or programming or all these distortions, we can just go back to that place. So I'm going to do a little meditation on this inner sacred marriage. But I just wanted to talk a bit about how to identify those out of balance masculine and feminine qualities within ourselves. And this is irrespective of gender, as I said before. Okay, I thank you. I hope that was helpful, and wishing everybody a happy solstice.